1, 2, 1, 2. Good, right. So this is industry foundation class. So we're now going to start talking about BIM. Now, I really don't want to have this module as a top module content too much on BIM, because I think when you teach about BIM, it can get very boring. Because I've been to many lectures and many conferences where they teach academically what BIM is, and I come out from it not knowing how to do anything other than I know that BIM means this and it doesn't mean that. I'm going to try and keep that to a minimum. However, we do need to talk about some things that are actually very important. So BIM in accordance with BSEN ISO, mouthful, 19650, that's how we refer to it. We used to have BIM as BIM level 1, 2, and this hypothetical 3. Anyone heard of BIM level 1, 2, 3 before? Yeah, well, we don't refer to that anymore because BIM level 3 never actually materialized. And I think, to be honest, for good reason. And it will eventually at some point. But for just now, when we talk about BIM, currently we would refer to it as doing BIM to 19650. It's a mouthful, I know. Right. Um, we are going to be looking at the naming structure. Now, if a platform is a BIM platform, in theory, for it to be called a BIM platform, it needs to have a common language or a common protocol with other softwares. And we use I think called the IFC for that. And Revit is absolutely one of the founding organizations that are, or Autodesk, that are behind the IFC format. Um, Even although they want you to stay within their environment, i.e. stay within Revit, you then go into Robot, you then go into Navisworks, they would prefer you to do that. But if it's truly a BIM project, I should be able to take that Revit file and put it into other platforms. Or it's not really a BIM project. If I have your road engineers working in SolidWorks and they're not able to bring in the Revit files in, that's pretty sad. Obviously they can, because SolidWorks is also a BIM platform as well. Right, so behind this IFC format, when you bring objects in, you've all used, give me some feedback here. In the classroom, there's only 4 students, you've got 4. You've all used Revit to some way, shape or form. Some a bit more than others. You've used Revit at all? Just the basics of Revit. And you've not used Revit much at all. Right, what do you use? Because you've got a degree in architectural technology. Have you used AutoCAD? So you've used AutoCAD quite a bit. Right, 2D or 3D? 2D, but not 3D. I'm going to say I'm going off topic again. Sorry if I go too long. Um, in the future, you really shouldn't be drawing 2D at all for anything, even sections. You really shouldn't. This is where mistakes get made, expensive mistakes. Things should be in 3D full stop. We're way off topic now. So if we're going to draw in 3D environment, everything in 3D, panel drawings, steelwork, roads, even the buildings with the walls as a continuous wall, we want that naming structure to be consistent. Now, there is no definitive naming structure out there. All that the documentation says within BSE and ISO 19650, or BIM, I'll refer to it as BIM from now on. All that BIM is really saying is it needs to be agreed, a protocol needs to be agreed at the very start of the project. What is the BIM protocol going to be? For a large firm that has, like Jacobs, they'll have everything in-house. So they're structural engineers, they're architectural technologists, they're architects, they're mechanical engineers, they're road, highways, mechanical, all of them will all be using the same protocol throughout. That's nice and easy. How reality though, very seldom does that ever work, because most firms do not have everything in-house. They'll be relying on external structural engineers, external architect, or this or that. and they have to come together and they have to agree upon a protocol. And if then another discipline is brought into the fold later on in the project, they'll then have to adopt that protocol that's agreed at the very start. Usually what will happen in real life, the bigger the firm will probably dictate we want to use our protocol, and they'll probably just agree with that because they're usually pretty good, or they'll adapt something to start with. Hence why I was asking before, has anyone got one that they've used in a previous job? Last year when I asked that, I had various people. I do have a company right now, High 6. High 6 have got a BIM protocol. I might even manage to get the chap who owns High 6 to come and give a lecture on just his thing. He is very passionate about BIM. He is a BIM advocate. Um, he doesn't even use Revit or SketchUp. He uses CADWorks. You probably never even heard of CADWorks. Maybe one person might have. Um, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the platform. As long as it's following that protocol and data exchange can happen from company to company or person to person using that common language, then it's all good. So the basis of that common language is IFC, Industry Foundation Class. That's what it stands for. Your next slide. Come on. Why is my thing not working? Do apologize. Right, it's working now. Industry Foundation Class file. It's available on all sorts of platforms, obviously Trimble. I'm not biased, Techo Structures. So I'll give you a quick rundown of what these are useful for. So Trimble is just the owning firm for Tekla Structures. Tekla Structures is what an AT would use for doing manufacturer drawings for steelwork. If you work for BSW or whoever, you would do all of your manufacturer drawings in Tekla Structures. SketchUp Pro, not SketchUp, but SketchUp Pro can handle BIM. I would say Tekla Structures is a bit better at it, to be honest. Autodesk, you've got Revit, Navisworks. I've not put in AutoCAD, because guess what? AutoCAD is not a BIM platform. Don't care what anybody tells you, it's not. Bentley, MicroStation. No, because it's not. It generally isn't. A MicroStation. You've used MicroStation before. Do you like it? Oh, right, okay. Got a hater in the room. Right. Um, you've got Building Designer as well. Wait a minute. Is that one you're using? And your module with Masood? What? But what's the module you're doing with Masood? What software are you using? It's not Building Designer? Design Builder, sorry, right. You've also got, we've also got ArchiCAD, SolidWorks, and I missed one out. And the person I was delivering this module with last year, Oliver Hibbs, who is now the chair of the CIAT, got very upset because his favourite package wasn't in there, and I totally forget what it is. Right, so the file formats, what have we got? File formats, we've got DWG. We use DWG quite a lot in AutoCAD, but we also use that in other platforms as well. That will still transfer information. We've got, this is the native, this is the raw files. We've got Revit, RVT, RFA, Navisworks. Navisworks are still your Autodesk, your Revit. We'll go into Navisworks, get saved natively in Navisworks. So the file format does change. It's no longer a Revit model anymore. It's now a Navisworks model because you've then done clash detection and things. Bentley is DNG, and SolidWorks is a mouthful. SketchUp SKP. Right. What happens if you try and open a Microsoft Word document in Excel? Anyone tried this before? You know, try it for a laugh. All you get is a mess. You just get like code, you know? And it's utterly a mess. You can do it. Or you'll get a file format not valid. But there's ways you can bring it in, but it is just a mess you get. But the file format's not valid. You can do it. You create a PDF document, or sorry, you can create an XPS document. However, when you do that, you lose some of the formatting. You lose information at some point during that exchange. So you end up getting something like this. This is what you get, right? That data is correct. That is the same data that you see in the Excel, but you don't, it's not, it's formatted very differently, and it is just a mess. However, it is still factually correct. So you're losing something in that format exchange. Industry Foundation class data models is intended to disseminate buildings and construction industry data. You can read that later on yourself, but IFC, that's the mantra behind IFC. It's not a new thing. We've been going for a little while now. The last time I checked, there's about 150 software applications that are all BIM compatible, all capable of bringing in IFC in and out of it. There's also packages that claim to be BIM, but don't have this ability. CAD Works being one of them. CAD Works will say that they're BIM, but only if you stay within their environment. Where Autodesk and all these other people would say, no, actually they're not BIM at all. And also IFC themselves would say, well, no, if you can't do IFC, you're not technically a BIM platform. And if you're working for a large contractor and they're asking you to work in a BIM protocol, now, at the moment, what projects have to be a BIM protocol at the moment? Mandatory, which ones are they? When do you have to work in BIM at the moment in the real world in the UK? Have a guess. Seriously, nobody's been teaching you this, right? So at the moment then, and has been for a number of years now, and Britain was one of the first countries in the world to do it, was to make it mandatory for all publicly procured financed projects like health centres, hospitals, schools, council buildings, over a certain budget, I think 500,000 or something, or I can't remember the budget, over a certain amount, any publicly procured money, it had to be BIM. At that time it was BIM level 2, well we'll just call it to BIM now, right? And it would mean BIM level 2. We're not going to go into the hierarchy of BIM, because that's the boring part I'm trying to avoid. We'll just do the follow me approach. The problems with IFC, you're obviously losing some data, right? So when you export a Revit model in an IFC for somebody else to bring into, say, SolidWorks, everything is there. You've not lost any data really, but you have lost some of the functionality. So in Revit, if you've used Revit before, you've got a thing called family components. Is that yes or no? Yeah? Right. Family component, you make a family component. You're not a Revit user. Who's the Revit users? Only one person in this whole class is a Revit user. Amazing. Right. One Revit, you make what's called a family component. In SketchUp, we make a dynamic component. Right? Now, that functionality in Revit or SketchUp, if I export that and bring it into vice versa platforms, that functionality and the dynamic side of the family component is lost. It's lost forever. So if you've got a component you've got in Revit that can be stretched and pulled as a dynamic component, right? If I export that IFC and bring it into another platform, as you've saved it, so you've saved it as a railing that's 5 meters in length, 2 meters tall. But that railing, when it's in Revit, you can tell it in text. You need to be 7 meters in length, and you need to be 3 meters tall or 1 meter tall. and it will do it automatically, and it'll add things in, spacing accordingly, or what we would call in SketchUp a dynamic component. Well, when you export that from Revit into an IFC file format and bring it into another platform, how you've saved it, it will remain like that. You won't then be able to go back into it and say, change your parameters. So it then becomes fairly static, right? I'm going to make some generalizations, and they are just that, generalizations. IFC file is not for editing. It should be seen as a reference model only, right? So let me say that again. If you're working with a structural engineer and you give them an IFC file and they bring that into their platform, say Robot or whatever platform they want, they should see that as a PDF, a stuck-in-time platform. That means it's not what BIM should have been. Because BIM should have been one single source of the truth. That means that it's not anymore. Okay? Right. However, if you're in Revit and you then export your file, not export, you just bring in your Revit file natively into Robot, then that's fine in theory, right? But we're not structural engineers in this room, so but we'll still pretend that it's a PDF in reality. It's stuck in time. But in theory, in the future, this will change. That's the driving thinking of behind. Right. So in accordance with, I'm going to call it BIM, the naming convention matters. So if we have got a bunch of quantity surveyors, or better still, facility management managers, who need to maintain the asset for years to come, or quantity surveyors that need to quantify how many objects do they need to purchase, they need to have a naming protocol, and that will be set up in day one. That's what we have a look at just now. This is an example. Where is this file coming from? This is from the Scottish Futures Trust, an example of what they've done. I find this one a bit of a headache personally, but people tend to prefer numbers or code names like this. I'm going to show you other examples that I find a little bit easier for going into it. But what you'll probably find when you work for a company, I had a student last year in this module, and she eventually did get permission to share with the class, but only show, not to keep. Otherwise I could show it to you as well, but I can't. Their company's protocol that they've made over a number of years, because they were absolutely BIM focused as a company. But what we've got here is an example of how they might do it. Project. I'm going to try and use my mouse. And with a pointer. So SC1, project, the originator, could be the person's name. For me, it'd be AL, Andrew Livingston. Volume or system. Labels and location. Type, role, classification, optional. Number. You see how it becomes quite hard to read. Okay, let me just turn this off now. So the Industry Foundation class, element classification. So when we make an object in Revit, SketchUp, not AutoCAD I'm afraid, but any BIM platform, you make an object, you want to give it a class. Now this is what we refer to as, let's have a look. Plain language description. It could be a structural frame, could be a beam, could be a stair, light, a stair, a wall, a roof. So if you draw something, and you say that's a staircase, you would then select that object. Where's my mouse? Hopefully my mouse is appearing on the recording. You would classify it as IFC stair. That's you give it a class now. Does anyone know what Kobe stands for? Right, so maybe it's quite good to explain what Kobe is just now. We've already explained what IFC file format is. Think of it as a three-dimensional PDF file of your BIM model that you've set it out, it's stuck in time, and it's not for editing, it's only for viewing and taking data from. But if you want the up-to-date one, you'll have to ask for a new version of it every time, right? It's not the native Revit or SketchUp file, right? So that's the IFC. Kobe, Kobe is the data, that's the comma delimited data. We call it comma delimited. It just means that it's text and every variable is separated by a comma. And it literally, when you export it into Microsoft Word, it looks horrendous, similar to what you saw 2 seconds ago. It looks similar to that here. Sorry for the recording. It looks similar to that. Not quite. Yeah, so a Kobe file is the sort of thing that a facility manager or a quantity surveyor might extract from the three-dimensional model. So think about this as the IFC is a PDF of the three-dimensional model, and you still get the three-dimensional geometry. Well, the Kobe is all the same data, it's just that you no longer have the three-dimensional geometry. All you've got is you've got everything, if it's done formatted correctly, you've got all of the data in there, all ordered properly. So you know you've got a space, you've got a house with say 4 rooms or 5 rooms in that house. Each room you define as a space. And any object in that space, it could be a desk, a chair, whatever you draw that appears within that three-dimensional space will then be classified as in that space. When we call out a Kobe file, all the data on that chair or the desk will be under being inside that space. Does that make sense? So if you're a quantity surveyor, you need to know what objects you need to purchase for each room, because that room will be finished first, so that'll have to be fitted out first. Like the televisions, the monitors, the carpet, whatever, it'll all be tagged as being in that room. So same as a facility manager, with maintenance schedules, they'll want to know what objects do they have. Well, we've got 500 of these chairs. They're dotted around the whole building, but in theory, there should be 24 in this room, 17 in this room, 200 in this other room, so forth. What is the carpet or the floor finish in each of the rooms? All of that data will still be in the Kobe file, but it's just in a comma delimited format. Now, facility managers and QSs, they can bring that data into their managing platforms in a text-based format, and they can manage it in a database more formally. But remember, you're not just building a building in real life, you need to build that three-dimensional model for handover as well. So they can then take that model and extract what they need from it in a format that the users need it to be in. Yep, does that make sense? So the naming structure becomes very important. Right, let's crack on. We're going to be using IFC4. That's the latest version of IFC. Again, IFC is not new. So this whole data exchange thing is going on for quite some time. We're going to use the simplified list because it's simple. Funny that. However, the IFC full list is hundreds of different types of beams and railings and ramps and things, all subdivided down. So when you're drawing a real project, you'll probably use the full list and you'll be classifying each thing. So if you're drawing a beam or a lintel, you would tell it you are a lintel. You're a concrete lintel. You are this, you're that. You're giving it that information. But for us just now, for this module, we're just trying to break the back and understand how it all works. we'll just use the simplified list. Next week or whatever, I'll show you how to do that in SketchUp. I've got videos on it already, and we'll use some of the past videos as well. There's an HTML, an HTM link to what you just saw there, and you'll see the full list. It's quite big. I'll hit it now just for an example. Yeah. So we're not going to get into that level, but you will do when you start a job and you're using BIM. Now, as I just said, about 5 years ago, they had said, I think it was about 5 years ago now, that they said in the UK, any projects or publicly procured funding for the project above a certain amount had to be BIM. You're finding more and more now, large projects. You were doing daycare centres. Right. Yeah, but daycare centres now, they are going to be BIM, absolutely, and they'll have to be BIM to a basic level, but even that will require this. Well, we'll stick to the simpler stuff. We'll stick to, where's my mouse? We'll stick to, we'll stick to this list just now, not unless you're a sadist. Right, some industry foundation class component naming conventions. This is the first example. It could be the first part, 00 foundation. So the three parts of the naming convention, we've got the location, building element, and number. So this is a very, very simplified version of what you saw before. There's the big one that you saw before, and that was from Scottish Futures Trust. This is just a very simplified one that I pulled together from somewhere. I think that's from TDU. This is actually from TDUK. It's actually a book that my boss wrote. I wrote this chapter. I don't wrote. My work went into this chapter. This is a simplified version, probably a bit too simple for us. So location, building element, and number. Could be foundation, could be concrete, number 1, number 2, number 3. Fairly simple. Another example would be, see the Excel sheet from Ecosystems Tech. Oh, this will be horrendous. Nope. I'm being very rude. So there is a spreadsheet I've got in Moodle. I'll make it available to you. They don't use it anymore because they've now got an external company called High6 that I spoke about a few minutes ago. They've got a brand new system which is amazing. I do like it a lot. We've actually got a third year student using it at the moment, that system. If I don't get Max Garcia, who's a graduate from Napier, who owns High6 and is in Bordeaux in France, if I don't get him coming over to do it, I'll perhaps ask the third year student to deliver a lecture on the protocol they're using, because it is quite sophisticated. That link there is just to the company website, which is quite smart. Have a look at what they do. But we'll crack on now once I get my mouse. So the third example is, where does this one come from? Yeah, this is from my first year class. So those videos that you're doing just now, those 18 videos, they're actually from my first year class for structural engineers. In those videos, you're only doing a small 30 square meter building, tiny little garden office type thing. Now, we developed those videos for first years, and so this naming protocol here is stolen from those videos. The only thing I've done different is I don't have the ES13 in there. That would be the project number. So the project number, so within your company, you may have a project number 13, 14, 15, whatever, or it could be 2025 001 002. So that would be the first part. For the video that we done, we just cut that off. We just said 2. 2 was the level. 2 level meant structure. cladding was 8, and there's a whole protocol for levels. Might even have it here. I think I do actually. Yeah, building, location, there we are. So we had data for 0. 1 is substructure, foundations, superstructure 1, insulation 3, skin cladding 4. We actually used this protocol here for the SNRG building, which you can Google later on through it best. I've got slides on that somewhere else. The next one was building location level. Level would be ground floor, first floor, or it could be ZZ, multiple levels, or it could be XX, no levels applicable, or it could be 00, base level. This is what we came up with at the time. We're not using it anymore. The material, TIM, CLT, NLT, these acronyms make sense to you? Right, this is good. I'm glad that some of this does make sense, because remember before, I'll go back several slides, I find that difficult to read, mainly because I didn't come up with it and I've not worked with it. I'm not biased. But this one here, it starts to make sense. The ground floor, first floor makes sense to me. And then timber, TIM, CLT, cross-laminated timber, NLT, nail laminated timber, PVC, plastic piping, external use, GLTP, you've not came across that yet, it's only a brand new product. I'll show you another time when we're off topic. Type could be wall, floor, window. Subtype and product code, so it could be by Velux. Right. And there's an example of how one might do this. Client ecosystems technology, project number 13. I don't know what's my thing with 13, but it seems to be. Superstructure, ground floor. So you can see that this code up here, get my mouse over here, this code here means that, the information there. And when you start to work with a code system like this, you'll be able to read it quite quickly, but it will take time. There's another example. Location, skin, that's like the cladding. Material, it's a PVC. It's a window, it's a Velux. So it's a window external, it's made out of PVC. Differentiator, I've used 13 again. I don't know why I keep using 13, like the 13th window or something. Or it could even be model number 13 from Velux. So again, this is a very simplified code. It's not the one we'll be using, because we have to develop it. Right. Class workshop discussion deliverables for the coursework, BIM protocol for the class project. This is where I'm going to have to stop the recording because it'd be a bit difficult for this to be recorded, but we're going to try and discuss in the room what are the protocols going to be. We'll whiteboard it. I'll then take a photo of that whiteboard. I'll then try and write down our first stab in the dark of what we're going to try and do. I'll then have to then present that in a video format to you guys and also to the distance learners as well. What other? Yeah, so I'll stop the recording just now. So before I do that, let me just clarify again. We need to develop a code suitable for the project that we're going to be doing. We know that we have to exchange data with a hypothetical designer, quantity surveyor. Remember, you are all of these people, yeah? So you are the designer. You're going to then pretend to become a quantity surveyor. You'll do a material quantity takeoff, and you will then take the data out of the BIM model, into an Excel using a comma delimited file or COBE. You'll be using a COBE file format, same way that a quantity surveyor does at the moment. And then you're going to process that and come up with some data. You'll then take another data set, which we've not even discussed yet, an external data set, which will have costs, and other lovely information in there as well. And you'll then write some code. I'll write it for you, it's fine. I'll write a code, a macro it's called, and you'll then merge the two data sets together automatically to then auto fill in some reports. Sounds very complicated, doesn't it? In actual fact, it is complicated. We're going to do it the hard way. We're going to do it by using Microsoft Excel. Now, a lot of firms still do that just now. However, has anyone ever heard of Microsoft BI, Power BI? Right? I'll guarantee that the facility management people will have, because they're dealing with big data sets all the time. They're dealing with the running of an existing building, and they need to catalogue everything about the maintenance scheduling for everything in that building. And also, if something breaks, how do I buy a new one exactly the same? What's the part number? What's the product code? Who's the supplier? How do I maintain it? How do I clean it? What's the protocol? So they're dealing with very large data sets. I'll guarantee they'll have heard of Power BI. Now, in theory, I'd love that we would start using Power BI, but I don't think we will be. One, I don't have the license, and two, to learn that platform is quite heavy. What we want to learn is the theory behind that. So we're going to do it all manually. We're going to do it all manually by pulling in external data sets, merging them into one, and having it automating it ourselves. So not doing it manually, we automate it ourselves using the macros that we'll write. I'll help you with it big time. And it will then auto fill out your data sets. Now, when we say these data sets, what we actually mean is a building maintenance manual. We're going to create a building maintenance manual out of our BIM protocol. So if we've got stuff inside that building, we need to make sure that ends up in this building maintenance manual. That's what we're going to produce. And along with quantities, costings, and also along with the return on investment. Quite a lot to do, quite a lot of data to process, but let's get our head around first of all this naming protocol, because that's really important. I will stop the recording now. Once I get the mouse.